Good afternoon. That's what I'm going to talk about today, a little bit of SendGrid's story and some of the lessons that we've learned as we've scaled over the last 8 years. I am the CMO at SendGrid, been there the last few years. How many of you know of SendGrid? I see a fair amount. How many of you are startups, 1 or 2 years old? And how many of you are developers, coders, versus marketers, kind of CEOs? All right, excellent. It's good to help me understand kind of where we are. So, SendGrid started 8 years ago by these 3 guys, our founders. They went through the first Techstars class in Boulder, Colorado, and they came up with a super powerful idea: enable developers to send email via an API. First ones, really a pioneer in that space. You fast forward today, some of these brands, some of the bigger brands in the world are using us to power their engagement strategy through email. Huge brands like Booking.com here, we send all of their email. eBay, Flipkart, OpenTable, Spotify, Airbnb, Uber. Every Uber receipt that you receive goes through the SendGrid network. And we really built the offering that we have today originally for developers. Email infrastructure is what we call it, enabling that transactional email, password resets, shipping notifications, elements that come directly from an application triggered in a one-to-one way. And then we've launched a tool called Marketing Campaigns, which competes with MailChimp. And it's a marketing tool for marketers to use to drive growth in their business, a one-to-many promotion. Sits on top of our platform and our services offering. And it's very unique. And today we have 55,000 paying customers in over 100 countries and 4 offices. We send about 30 billion emails every month, which is a massive scale, right? When you think about that compared to Twitter, for example, we're 10 times the size in terms of total scale. Okay, so I wanted to share a few of the things that we learned along the way as we scaled up to a company today. We have over 400 employees. And it starts really with product market fit. You've heard this many times, but this issue of having a real problem to solve in a big enough market that's large enough to scale a business is really the key here. Mark Andreessen, right? Has to be in a good market with a product that can satisfy that market. Good market means a big enough market to scale. And how we've done this at SendGrid is what we call the SendGrid way. It's our approach to developing products and software that starts with identifying and validating a specific problem that the market has, and then validating that solution and that buyer exists. And we call it the SendGrid way. It's a learn, build, grow model, but we spend an enormous amount of time on the blue part of this slide, where we discover the opportunity and scale it and scope it. See how big the opportunity is, what's the TAM for that particular solution or that particular feature, that particular product. And then we spend an inordinate amount of time, 20, 30 interviews with actual users validating that the problem exists, followed by the same amount with actual buyers validating that they'd be willing to buy it and what price point. And I think a lot of companies, particularly in the startup size, skip a lot of this front end. They have a gut or a hunch. They talk to a handful of customers or a handful of prospects. This is really where a systematic approach early pays off meaningfully in the end. Second key point that we learned along the way is the importance and the value of listening deeply to your customers. And for us, NPS is a key way to do that. We survey all of our customers, both paid and free customers, nearly every quarter in totality. And we use that data very aggressively. We use it to make decisions about our product, about our marketing, about our sales approach. There's all kinds of research that shows when you identify your promoters, they're typically worth a large 80% referrals in most businesses, whereas your detractors are where all your negative word of mouth comes from. So understanding where your promoters and your detractors are and actually reaching out to them. We have a process at SendGrid where our senior leadership team, all of our kind of directors and above, actually call multiple NPS readouts every quarter. And it's part of our process. It also gives our team an opportunity to actually talk to an actual customer, which as a self-service, primarily driven business model, we don't have as much opportunity to do that as a lot of companies. And so we spend a lot of effort on this. And we really build a strategy around what we call voice of the customer. It includes MPS as a key component, but also our customer advisory board, where we meet at least twice, often 3 times a year with some of our biggest customers. And we also have sub-boards where we're targeting use cases, components inside of our customer base, and getting together with them on a regular basis, asking questions. We videotape it and allow a large swath of our company to look at it. And then the third piece is really this customer validation process, this intense investment that we make to ensure that we're building the right product for a customer that wants to buy it. And we think a lot about focusing on that service piece of SaaS. We invest in support that's market leading compared to our competition. We think this is a huge differentiator for us as a company. Also, delivery services, our community development organization, and our online research community, all of the customer success folks that we have against some of our higher volume customers, and then, of course, sales, which is constantly looking for new opportunity in the market. This is an important thing that we learned along the way, the value of support. It's why we invest and offer free support for all of our customers in a very comprehensive 24/7 way. Third lesson that we learned is the importance of building a lasting brand. And I think for a lot of startups, this is a second, third, fourth start. They're really worried about the software and the product market fit and pricing it right and finding customers. But paying attention to your brand, even starting with your corporate identity and your logo, it matters. It matters a lot over time as you get bigger. And that's because you're looking to build this relationship between experience and expectations and ultimately build brand value and awareness in the market. And it starts with awareness. It moves up the pyramid to affinity, relationship, and preference and choice. But ultimately what you want is attachment. You want an individual relationship between your customers and your brand that's a really strong connection between themselves and your product. Some great experiences in there are companies like Spotify, which is a big customer of ours, or Netflix. And one of the attributes of a great brand, I think, is personality. A wink and a nod, something that differentiates and stands out in the marketplace. We do all kinds of things. We ran a April Fool's Day campaign around carrier pigeon new products that we launched. We've done all kinds of video and really grassroots elements. We have a podcast. We invest in trying to create personality around our brand, and it really pays off as many customers know us in the market, and it's part of our differentiation, right? The classic T-shirt, the hoodie, the uniform, creating awareness in the marketplace around who you are, trying to stand out is really a key element that we learned. Number 4, and this is really important, is that hiring itself is a privilege. And we spend an enormous amount of time on this. And there's all the research, right? Here's one from Career Builders around, we all know this. Some of the worst mistakes we've made as business leaders are the people that we've hired that have turned out to not be the right ones. And so we spend an inordinate amount of time on this. We've modeled our program after the Amazon Bar Raisers program, where we have a set of what we call bar raisers inside of our organization that are asked to interview as part of the interview team and have the right to reject any candidate that goes in. And it's a part of our DNA that really makes, I think, SendGrid different. We're striving to find and hire people that align with our values and that align with our culture, which is really a key part. And that's really the 5th element. In fact, back to the first one on the hiring piece, as a startup leader, you should probably be spending 30-40% of your time hiring people inside your organization and personally engaging with each hire to ensure that they fit the culture that you're trying to build. And this is number 5. And it's all about being intentional as a startup, as a growth company around culture, thinking hard about it. There's a lot of study on this too. Here's a study from McKinsey, the guys that are just on stage. It's one of the main barriers to success in the digital economy today is not having the right culture. And I think personally, I am aligned behind cultures that, are also a bit of a personality in their delivery. Here's SendGrid's culture set, our values: happy, hungry, humble, and honest. We call them the 4 H's. And we talk about this literally every day. It comes out inside of our company as part of who we are. Now, that's not a very hungry H approach to that problem. Or I'm not sure you're being very humble H this morning, right? Or it's not very honest H in what you're approaching. It's built into our lexicon as who we are as a company, and we actually screen for each of these values in all of our hiring today. And we think this has been one of our most important differentiators in the market. You know, it's easy to remember. Employees can grok it and get it. It's got some alliteration, and therefore it's kind of got a little bit of a wink and a nod to it. And, you know, we think about this all the time. In fact, our CEO, Samir Dalakia, he spends an enormous amount of his time figuring out ways to reinforce this across our organization. So this is one that you almost can't pay enough attention to. I'd encourage you to think hard about, you know, having a corporate value set that is not a list of 9 values that is published on your website that have a bunch of corporate-y words to it, but come up with something that has a hook, that is clever, that people can remember, and that differentiates you. And there's all kinds of ways to do this, but this is one that I'd say, of all the things around SendGrid, getting this right and living it every day has been one of the keys to our success as a company. It helps in our hiring. It helps in understanding who we are. We reference it constantly in our internal communications with our employees, and we reference it externally as part of our recruiting. You know, people that are high performers, that are true bar raisers, they want to join a company that thinks like this, not somebody that has 10 corporate values on their website. So this is a really important part of succeeding as a startup. And you know, we also take this to what we call a servant leadership model for our senior leaders, where we strive to invert the pyramid and think about our leaders as being here to serve, first and foremost, our employees. Second, our customers, and third, you know, our stakeholders, our investors that put money into our company. We talk about this a lot as well, and that reinforces our humble H, right, as part of our 4 H's. And it's really it's a key part of you know, how our leadership team thinks about serving our employee base. And we talk about this all the time too, and it really reinforces our approach. So, servant leadership, culture, really important. Last one, number 6, don't get burned by your cash burn. Obviously, this is a develop in the marketplace today that has really changed what it means. It used to be that the entire focus was on growth and growth percentage. I think today it's different. They're looking, you know, investors, the market is valuing, you know, the Rule of 40 that was spoke about earlier a lot more than just, you know, 60% year-over-year growth. In fact, our friends at First Round coined this concept of the Watney rule for startups. That's Mark Watney from The Martian, right? Where he had to figure out how to sustain himself on Mars when he got left behind. And, you know, startups are a lot similar today. You need to think about a sustainable model, which means positive cash flow, which means not getting comfortable with an endless burn rate, but rather finding a way to profitability that is quicker than it may have been in the past, where value is really derived primarily from growth. This has certainly been something that we've lived and breathed at SendGrid. We manage by the Rule of 40 pretty aggressively. That's a key element for us. And you know, profitability is a really important thing for us as we think about long-term stability and growth. So, just to re-encapsulate those 6 elements, obviously a focus on product market fit. Any of you that started a company understand the importance of this and why it's so crucial. I think the big takeaway for us here is the investment that we make on the front end to really, really understand both the problem and the solution that we're going to deliver and ensure that it fits that buyer and that there's going to be a steady stream of revenue behind it, and we model for that. Building a lasting brand, really important element. You know, finding a way to insert personality, a little bit of a, you know, what we call a wink and a nod into your brand experience so that you stand out from the market. and ensure that you're leveraging really strong corporate identity, that you're building awareness in your markets through events, through social media, through all the various channels that you have at your disposal. Listening to your customer. If you don't have an NPS process in place, I think that's essential for modern success today. Leveraging that process to gather feedback, asking about, simple questions. Bill Masitis yesterday from Slack and Zendesk, he was talking about how you just ask simple things like, what are 3 reasons why you refer us to customers? What are 3 reasons why you don't? Trying to find insights in that NPS process that'll help you guide your customer strategy. And then, of course, leveraging classic tactics like customer advisory boards, like going to customer events, holding your own customer event, even if you have a small number of people show up, that value of trying to create togetherness and understanding at a group level is really powerful as you scale your company. Focusing on hiring as a top priority, right? Really, perhaps the most important thing behind product market fit is the quality of employees that you hire. And thinking about that as an exercise in raising the bar and being extremely critical about the people that you bring into your organization. It is the most important element, right behind culture, right? Which is such an important thing. If again, find a creative way to talk about your culture, to differentiate it and make it your own. Leverage, marketing tactics to help your organization really understand it and remember it, and use it as a recruiting tool out into the world because it's a differentiator if you do it right. And then, of course, this whole mantra around not getting burned by your cash flow. The idea that in today's world, we're really looking for more of a balance between growth and a path to profitability. And I think these are keys that have been very successful for us at SendGrid. And I'd encourage you all as growth companies to think about some of the same aspects as you scale and grow your company. So thanks so much for hearing today. I'm happy to take any questions if anybody has any. It doesn't look like there's, I don't know if the Slido is up and live, if there's any that are on there. Doesn't look like it. Any questions from the audience about SendGrid or some of the things that we've learned as we've grown and scaled? You guys want to be us someday, right? All right. Well, thank you very much. There's my contact info. Love to stay in touch if anybody wants to connect, and have a good rest of the show. Thank you.